Jonathan Aitken is best known for his political career, which saw him represent the constituency of South Thanet for 23 years and hold 2 ministerial positions. However, after spending 7 months in prison for perjury in 1999, Jonathan began studying the Bible and became a student of Christian theology at Wycliffe Hall, Oxford, and was finally ordained as an Anglican priest in 2019. Reverend Jonathan is with me now in the studio. Thank you very much for joining me on a Sunday. I hope you celebrated this morning.
I did.
Fantastic. I understand that you've started to attend Alpha course, or you did before you went to prison. Was that what set you on the journey towards your faith?
Well, many things started me on the journey, but certainly the Alpha course back in the year 1997, when I hadn't heard of it, no idea what it was at all.
Right.
I was persuaded, rather against my will at the time, to go to it. And I always remember at the end of the first Alpha course meeting, my fundamental feeling was one of relief. Nobody happyed or clapped at me, nobody asked me to confess my sins in public, all the kind of rumours that go on. And I stuck with the course, and it got better and better and better. The teaching got better. And although I'm not an absolutely total paid-up Alpha enthusiast, I think it is a wonderful introduction to Christianity, and I still teach it. I've been teaching it quite recently, or parts of it.
So, I think it's fantastic.
So I'm an Alpha fan, although I like to move on a bit further.
Well, we're teaching Christianity Explored in my church in the new year, which is a very similar thing. We're more conservative in the theology. But I do think Alpha is a very good thing in getting people into the faith. Now, you're known for saying that you were rejecting ordination at first because you didn't want to give the dog collar a bad reputation. Do you still stand by those words?
Well, I guess I've moved on from that too. But at the time, I was a disgraced politician, as the newspapers kept calling me. And that was fair comment. And I think anybody who applies for ordination should try and apply with a clean sheet behind them. So at the time, I did feel that I absolutely was not right for it or worthy of it. Okay. But when God starts to murmur at you, I've resisted it for some time, I might say.
But surely you had a clean slate. You were baptized and born again in the Holy Spirit?
Yes, certainly in deep theological terms, yes. But in the eyes of the world, who are quite important, I think, in ordination choices too, no, I wasn't.
Can you tell me a bit about that transition from your criminal past into becoming an ordained minister? Because it's quite a juxtaposition, isn't it?
Well, after I came out of prison, I had this unusual career change. I went to the one place in Britain which had worse food and worse plumbing and more uncomfortable beds than the prison, and that was an Anglican theological college.
I can attest to that.
Where I had wonderful teachers like Graham Tomlin and Michael Green, and the principal, Alistair. And anyway, I really loved my time learning, but never thought I would move towards becoming a priest. It just wasn't on my agenda at all. But I was always busy all this time in prison ministry, in a lay form, particularly in America, where I trained with a great figure called Charles Colson, who's also been a disgraced politician. And anyway, it was a gradual process. And one of the things in my prayers, I still do, is you occasionally say to God, anything else you'd like me to do? And to my amazement, one day, the voice seemed to be saying, actually, I want you to go and be ordained. I, rather more politely than I'm saying now, said, shut up, God, this is a ridiculous idea. I'm too old, I'm not worthy of it. But then the murmurs started to say, I actually meant I wanted you to be a prison chaplain. Well, that's something I felt I could conceivably do. Even so, I resisted. And then somebody sent me a little verse of doggerel written by the cricket captain of England in his day, somebody just as famous as Ben Stokes now, whose name was C.T. Studd. And he had been cricket captain of England when he got the call to become a member of the clergy in the Church of England. And everyone said, oh, I wonder what the great batsman C.T. Studd is going to be, wants to join the church. And he said, well, yes, I do, but I want to be a prison chaplain. And everyone said, no, you would be a bishop in no time if only you stuck with a mainstream church. But being a prison chaplain, I mean, that's below the salt. And C.T. Studd got so fed up with trying to explain why he wanted to be a prison chaplain that he wrote a little verse of doggerel, which went as follows. Some like to live within the sound of church and chapel bell. I want to run a rescue shop within a yard of hell. And as soon as I read that, knowing that prison can be a yard from hell, I said, actually, I would love to do that. So I then talked to my bishop and others, and I was ordained really to be a prison chaplain, and I love it. I find it really fulfilling, really interesting, and it's ministry at the sharp end.
I greatly admire it. I think, no one who wants to be a bishop should ever become a bishop. And I think
Yes.
as a Christian minister, we should aim to be in the places where ministry is needed the most, and that is in prisons and in areas of deprivation. So I greatly admire that. But recently, this week, we've had the census data that shows that Christianity in this country is in a sharp decline and has been for a number of decades now. But we're now in a minority. Did this, A, come as a surprise to you, and B, why do you think it might be?
Well, I know there have been some journalistic headlines about it, but those who write them and read these stories and regurgitate them are taking a very parochial view. First of all, Christianity is not in decline at all, but here in Britain it is.
Yeah.
And if you look at the worldwide figures, the fastest growing religion by miles, including in places, unlikely places like China, and the Far East and Africa, huge growth. And so it's the fastest growing religion, if that. But of course, the real parochial view is God is not interested in a numbers game, just what statistic, and slightly bogus statistic anyway, even if the Gallup poll is honest, because what is a Christian? And what do people say, well, I don't think I'm a Christian. Then their mother has cancer or something, they start to pray.
Yeah.
And so it's a very, very questionable exercise altogether. But I think above all, God is bigger than these statistics, and the Christian religion is bigger than England. So I take this, I'm underwhelmed by this Gallup poll.
Okay, and as a final question, just to summarise in about 30 seconds if you can, what can the Church of England do to turn this around and to be there spiritually for people that do need the Christian faith, that need to find Christ? What can the Church do?
Number one, the Church should be there for anyone thinking in the faintest way of seeking God, calling for God's comfort. And that, of course, goes far wider than attending services, important though that may be. It goes far wider than some of the familiar religious measurements, how many people are getting confirmed and that kind of thing.
But be there.
To be there for people in need.